Okay, welcome to another segment of BS with John, quarantine bartending, and today is National Cocktail Day. So I put it out there for get some suggestions, and I got some responses. I got gin and vodka, smoky, a little fruity, not too bitter, not too sour, and I got bourbon, somewhat Swedish, and I got, it should be a martini. So first drink I'm gonna make is a riff on another drink that I made called the Shelter in Place. This is going to be called the Quarantini, and it could be either gin or vodka based. So we're gonna start with the dry shaker and 2 to 3 slices of jalapeno peppers. In addition to that, we're gonna do some fresh cut ginger if you have it. Now, we're gonna add a ½ ounce of lime juice, ½ ounce of honey syrup. And you can use simple syrup if you don't have honey, or you can use a bar spoon or a tablespoon of honey. A little less than a tablespoon. This is a bar spoon. And we're going to now muddle our ginger and our peppers with the lime juice and the syrup. And you can really get in there and just macerate it down. And by doing that in the syrup and in the lime juice, you're going to get more infusion with the peppers and the ginger throughout the cocktail. And if you want to see that, you can just take a sniff, and the fragrance of the peppers and the ginger should really come out. Actually, I'll just give it a little more. All right, then we're gonna fill our cocktail shaker with ice, about 3/4 of the way. And then we're gonna start building our cocktail. So I'm gonna do gin. So I'm gonna take 2 ounces of a London dry gin, so Tanqueray, Bombay Sapphire, Aviation, whatever your pleasure. You could also use Plymouth gin if you liked. Okay, so there's my gin. You can use vodka too. And then I'm going to use a liqueur called elderflower, which is kind of a very floral and sweet liqueur. But it's very herbaceous, and you can really get the sort of the floral notes from it. So I'm going to use about a ½ ounce of that, 1/4 to a half. And then I am going to do a ½ ounce of pineapple juice. Or I'm sorry, a full ounce of pineapple juice. And since I just made this recipe up kind of on the fly, I have written it down. I'll take over there. So that's what you keep seeing me looking at. And then we're gonna finish this off with some bitters. So we're gonna give it our smoky flavor that way. So I'm going to take 2 or 3 dashes of smoked chili bitters if you have them. We're going to do 2 or 3 dashes of a smoked bitter. And if you don't have this, aromatic Angostura bitters will get you there. And you can also use, if you have it, like a liquid smoke, like a drop or 2 of liquid smoke. But don't use too much, because that can be pretty potent stuff. All right, so a drop of our smoke bitters. I'm going to do a couple dashes of citrus bitters. And I'm going to finish it off with a ginger bitter. So a couple dashes of that. Throw all of that into a cocktail shaker. Give it a shake. can serve it in whatever kind of glass you want to serve it in, but I recommend that you serve it into a martini glass. So there you have it, your Quarantini, which is a gin or vodka smoked citrus martini. All right, and now for drink number 2. This is a riff on one of my favorite cocktails, the Vieux Carre. The Vieux Carre itself is a riff on another cocktail. It's a New Orleans-based cocktail, and it's a riff on a Manhattan or an old-fashioned style drink. And so a traditional Vieux Carre is going to have rye, high-proof rye. It's going to have sweet vermouth. It's going to have a couple dashes of bitters, and it's going to have brandy, cognac, and it's going to have this liqueur, Benedictine, which is kind of a somewhat bitter but very fragrant wine-style, brandy-style cocktail that's from France, and there's only one place that makes it, and that's DOM. So what I'm going to do to give it a little bit of flair is I'm going to replace the cognac with a dark rum to give it a little sweetness, but it still is a very bourbon or rye forward drink. And you can use bourbon or rye. I choose to use rye. So I'm going to get my chilled rocks glass, some ice, and a little bit of ice for my vessel. So I'm going to start 2 ounces of bourbon, or I'm sorry, 1 ounce of bourbon. And I'm using Rittenhouse 100 proof bonded in bottle bourbon. I think that is one of the best bourbons for making a cocktail, and it's pretty cheap. It runs about 20 bucks. Then I'm going to use some Bacardi dark rum, 1 ounce of that. I'm going to use a 1/4 ounce of my Benedictine. And I'm going to use 3/4 ounce of a sweet vermouth, and I'm using Antica Formula Carpano, which is a little bit pricier, but it has a smoother, richer taste to it. And you can use Martini Rossi or whatever you have. You want to use a sweet vermouth, but this stuff is really pretty good. And I'm going to use 3/4 ounces of that. And then I'm going to do 2 to 3 dashes of Pachauds bitters from New Orleans, which is the traditional bitter in a Sazerac. And I'm going to do 2 ounces of Regan's orange bitters. I'm sorry, 2 dashes of Regan's orange bitters. I'm going to take my spoon, I'm going to stir it up about 50 times. I'm going to strain that into my chilled glass. No ice and no garnish required. And if you want to be super fancy and you have it, you can take absinthe if you like this taste of licorice, and you can rinse your glass with it. And that means pouring about 1/4 ounce of absinthe into your cocktail glass, rinsing it out, and then discarding. So here are your two drinks, ladies and gentlemen, for National Cocktail Day. The rum and rye Vieux Carre and the Quarantini. Cheers.